So in this video we're going to talk about simple random sampling. And when we talk about sampling well, which is what we've just started to get into, how do we take a good sample? We talked about the bad things that can happen now, how do we do it well? The key is some type of randomness, some type of chance process involved. And the most simple type of a random sample is this simple random sample, hence the name simple. There are two other types, as you see here, that we will get to a little later on, but today we're just going to go over simple random sampling. So simple random sampling is defined as every individual from the sample has an equal chance of getting chosen for that sample. And then this second one, every group of our size we want has an equal chance. We'll kind of come back to. But what we mean there is, if I look at this list of stores down here, which we're going to sample from later, and let's say I'm taking samples of size 3, which I think we are. This group is 1, 3, this group is 1, 3, the first and the last and the middle is 1, 3. There are lots of combinations of groups of size 3. Every possible group of size 3 should have an equal chance of being chosen. And that's what a simple random sample does for us. These other two actually don't, and that's where once we go over those, we'll come back and say why this is specific to a simple random sample. It doesn't make a simple random sample better, it just makes it the simplest of all the random sampling types. There are a couple ways to take a simple random sample. Actually more than a couple ways, but a couple that we're going to stick to. One is one we've probably already done, and if not, you'll see it soon. It's when we do that rand int in the calculator, and we tell the calculator we want a certain number of random digits between a certain range of integers. So in our case, let's say we wanted, let's say, I don't know how many stores there are, but let's say there were 20. I would want numbers 1 through 20 to be my random numbers, and I want to pick 3 of them at random. So that's how I do it in the calculator. The problem is when you're being tested on this, you could easily say, I generated random numbers, and they were 15, 18, and 3. And there's no way of the AP test or me knowing that you actually know how to do that. So when you're tested on this, oftentimes you have to know how to use this random digits table that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to show you how to use that in order to take the sample of size 3 from this group of stores. But you know that you could technically label all these stores a random digit and then pick 3 of them from it, take the corresponding numbers, 3 numbers that you get, and select those stores. So when we do it on a random digits table, here's what it looks like. Here's what a random digits table looks like. And basically it's organized by line, just as a reference. So these are just reference numbers so you know where you are. And then it's grouped into size 5 just so your eye can follow it easier. So this gap really means nothing. Neither does as you go on to this second line. So going from here to here is just a constant flow of numbers. So I just read like I do always, left to right, up to down, and the numbers go on and go on and go on. So let's start by saying there were 9 stores in the mall and I wanted to pick 3. That would be a little bit more simple than what we're actually going to do, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to assign the stores a number from 1 through 9, and let's just start on 110. So what I would want to do here, is start by taking 1 digit at a time. So it's easy if you kind of break it up this way. Right, so I take 3, and I take the store that corresponds to number 3. I take 8, and I take the store that corresponds to number 8. Then I take 4, and I take the store that corresponds to number 4. Pretty simple. Let's pretend, just for purposes of this, that we were taking, we wanted to sample 4 stores. I'd have to keep going and get one more, right? Well, here's what happens. I kept going, and I land on 4 again. I don't want that same store, right? So there's one thing that we need to be careful about on this random digits table, which actually is the same as in the calculator. Happens in the calculator. So then I would have to keep going, up 8, up 4, up 8. This doesn't happen all the time, but as we know, random digits can definitely happen. And then I land on 7, and I have my 4 stores. So these are the things that we need to talk about when we are telling the tester what our method is. So we have to be really, really specific. I'm taking 1 digit at a time. If I get a repeat, I'm going to skip it until I get 4 unique numbers. And then I'll go find the stores that correspond to those numbers. So very, very specific. So that's if there were 9 stores. Well, what happens if there's 10 stores? You're going to want to say assign digits 1 through 10 and do the same. But the problem is, if we think about it that way, we'll never get store 10, right? We're taking 1 digit at a time. We'll never get store 10. Now, some of you might kind of be on to what we're going to do here, is that, well, actually, if we think about digits, there are actually 10 digits if we include 0. So one thing we would have had to say here that we didn't say when I was doing 9 stores is if I get 0, I have to skip it because it's not one of my stores, right? But with 10, 0 can be my 10. So, but I'd have to say something like assign the store's numbers from 0 to 9, right? So specific. And then I would go ahead and do the same thing. Okay, next iteration, well, what if there's 11 stores? Right now I can't just use 1 digit at a time because there aren't enough to represent the 11 stores. So it becomes a little bit of pain because I have to assign the stores 2 digits. So however you want to do that, I could assign them like I could do, I could assign them 0, 1 to 11, or I could assign them 0, 0 to 10, right? That works too. I could, if I want, for whatever reason, assign them 21 to 31. There's 11 numbers in there. Kind of silly. I would probably stick to one of these. But as long as I assign them 2 digits, they're all going to have an equal chance. It's just that I'm going to have to leave a lot of things out. So in this case, along with skipping repeats, I'm going to have to skip any numbers outside my range. So if I say, let's say we're doing this one right here, I'd skip 0, 0 and 12 to 99, as well as repeats. So again, being really specific and making sure you rate that, because otherwise someone may not be able to follow what you're doing. All right, so let's do that one quickly, just to show you it gets a little bit more complicated, especially with something like 11 where it's the last one outside our range. Actually, I want to make this bigger again because it helps. Let's start a little farther down on line 115, let's say. We'll start on line 115. Really doesn't matter where you start because it's all random numbers. I would go like this. 61, nope, I don't want it. Up 4, yep, I want it. Okay. And then I kind of wrote over it, but the next one is 17. Let's say there were 20 stores. So 17 is my next one. I'll write them down here just so we can see them. 4, 17, 76, nope, outside my range. 84, outside my range. We're going to pick 3 stores. 94, outside my range. 32, outside my range. 22, 47, oh, finally 9. So there are my 3 stores that I would choose. You see, as if you have to get up to 3 digits, it gets really, really not fun. But you probably won't be asked to do that when using a random digits table. So here are kind of the questions that you need to answer if you are writing up, and I would do it in bullet points, if you are writing up how you were going to use a random digits table. And a lot of these correspond to what you would say if you were using a calculator too. Just as specific as you can be so that someone could literally pick it up and do exactly what you just did. So some questions, how many digits should I take at a time? Depends on how many things are in our population we're picking from. Should I skip repeats? For the most part, you are. There are times that we'll see when you're not, but think about if it makes sense. Usually you're going to skip repeats because you don't want the same store in there twice. Are there any numbers not in our range we need to skip? I need to say what those are. When am I going to stop? Okay, I'm not going to keep going and pick these numbers forever. And then instead of just saying, all right, I got my numbers, then what are you going to do with them? I got the numbers 4, 17, and 9, right? I'm going to go find the stores that correspond to 4, 17, and 9, and I'll go to those to talk to them. So let's go and do this with that mall example just so you can see how that's done. Okay, so here's our example. We want to randomly sample 3 of these stores to determine, we're trying to figure out hours that the stores want to be open for the holiday season. And again, this is how they can kind of test that you did it right. They're going to tell you what line on the table to start on, so everyone should get the same. So you could try this first on your own if you want to see if you kind of get it, but I'll also walk you through it right now because there will be more examples like this that you'll have to do. But feel free to start it on your own. So like I said, we really have to say every step we're going to do. So my first step would be to label the stores, and we need to figure out how many there are, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like 7 times 3, so 21. So we got to use 2 digits, right? And I'm going to say 0, 1 through 21. You'll note I said 0, 1 because the first store is not 1. It's 0, 1, right? That's important. You'll get taken off for that. So 0, 1, 0, 2, dot, 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 21, right? Then I'm going to go to the table, and starting at line 101, I'm going to take 2 digits at a time. I'm going to skip repeats because I don't want the same store twice. And 0, 0, because that's not one of my stores. And 22 to 99, because I could get those, right? Then, so I'm following all these questions that we were asking over here, if you remember. When do I want to stop? Stop when we get 3 unique, so I don't want those repeats. Numbers in our range. And survey the stores that correspond to those numbers. To those numbers. Sorry, a little messy. So we'll do it, but this is kind of, if I had to first say what I was going to do, this is what I would do, then I'm going to actually go do it. So line 101, that's the first line on the table. Not sure why they start on 101, but they do. So we're going to go 2-digit numbers at a time. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see them, but we're on that first row. 19, I like it, right? So there's my first one. 22, I don't like it, I have 22 stores. 39, see how I'm going over the row, over this blank space. 50, I don't want it. 34, I don't want it. 5, there's a good one. So there's my second one. 75, no. 62, no. 87, no. 13. So I have 19, 5, 19, 5, and 13. That's a 19 there. And I would go survey those corresponding stores, which in our case it looks like will be, if you look at your paper, Star Jewelers, Carter's for Kids, and Mrs. Fields. And that is how we use a random digits table to do simple random sampling.